Shalom. Shalom. Giving honor and praise to the Most High, the creator and maker of heaven and earth. My name is Yeshaya Yisrael of the tribe of Dan of the nation of Israel. This is a presentation brought to you from the congregation Shema Yisrael, based in Brooklyn, New York. I want to, on a human level, give due respect to Nasi Zipor Wagam Et Nasi Natanel Wagam Et Sar Natanel. This particular teaching, brothers and sisters, and I do apologize for the tardiness for those who are waiting online because we're starting later than we had hoped. But this is for edification purposes. Everybody may not agree with the findings in this particular teaching, but it is presented nonetheless. Next slide, thank you. Introduction, Part A. The portion we're reading is called Beshalach, and it means in sending out, from the root word shalak, which means to send out, and Beshalach means in sending out. The scene takes place in northeast Egypt, and the departure of the Israelites is what we are talking about. In the past presentations, we discussed that the Exodus was during the Middle Kingdom of Egypt, and the Pharaoh of the Exodus being Neferhotep I. His son, Ha'ankef, was not the successor of his father, but rather his brother, Sihathor, was the successor of Neferhotep. Last time, the link posted in the description, we discussed the matter of the Exodus and the external sources of such information. Now, in the description, once this video here is uploaded, I would put those videos inside the description box so you can see it with easier access. Okay, next slide. Thank you. Introduction, Part B. One unusual aspect Israelites did recently was in regards to the Exodus, was use collegiate and external sources for the information regarding the oppression and exodus of the Israelites from Egypt. In recap, we want to state the writings from Ipura and the evidence from the Lahun Papyri show that during the Middle Kingdom of Egypt, that yes, there were Amu / Asiatic slaves in the land of Egypt. The fact that we are not there today shows that an exodus of some sort had to occur. In this presentation, we will continue in the same vein, presenting information. Shalom. Once again, giving honor and due respect to Yah, the creator and the maker of heaven and earth. All right? The third power point there, or the third point in this aspect that you're looking at here, it says the fact they are not there today shows that an exodus of some sort had to occur. What do I mean by that is this. If you look at the reference from the Epura papyrus, as we went over last time, if you look at the evidence from the Lahun papyri, both of them dated to the Middle Kingdom of Egypt, you will begin to see that there were people referred to as the Kimenu or the Kimnu or the slaves or the maid servants inside of the land of Egypt during the Middle Kingdom. So the fact that they are not there today, when there's evidence from the Egyptian sources that they were there at that particular time in ancient Egypt, shows that there had to have been an exodus. Next slide, thank you. This is coming from the book of Exodus chapter 13, and it says this. And it came to pass when Pharaoh had let the people go, that Elohim led them not through the way of the land of the Philistines, although that way was near. For Elohim said, lest peradventure the people repent, when they see war and they return to Egypt. But Elohim led the people about through the way of the wilderness of the Red Sea. And the children of Israel went up harnessed out of the land of Egypt. And Moshe took the bones of Joseph with him, for he had straitly sworn the children of Israel, saying, Elohim will surely visit you, and you shall carry my bones away hence with you. And they took their journey from Sukkot and encamped in Etham in the edge of the wilderness. And Yah went before them by day in a pillar of cloud to lead them the way, and by night in a pillar of fire to give them light to go by day and night. He took not away the pillar of cloud by day, nor the pillar of fire by night from before the people. One of the things I wanted to point out, when you go right there in Exodus 13, verse 22, it says the Most High took not the cloud away by day, nor the pillar of fire by night. So what we're able to glean, brothers and sisters, is that the Most High did not forsake the children of Israel. You understand? This is something we want to point out for evidence purposes. He made sure that his presence was among the house of Israel, outside of the land of Israel. Why do I emphasize that? Because there are some who may say or teach that the Most High is not with us as he was within us being inside of the land. No, brothers and sisters, the book of Malachi tells you that Yah is great beyond the borders of Israel. Could be the borders land-wise, the borders people-wise. But this is something we want to go over for edification purposes, brothers and sisters. All right. It says, and Yah went before them by day in a pillar of cloud to lead them the way, and by night in a pillar of fire. We went over this last time and discussed how the Apera Papyrus speaks about the land being separated between the Egyptians and the Emu by fire, as will be posted in this description. All right. So I do know and understand last time when I went over the sources, I kind of jumped the gun, you may say, and going over some things last time in a portion called Bow that should have been for this portion, but it's still online nonetheless for those who care to look it up. Glory to the Most High. Okay, so we're going to go over this particular aspect, and it says what? That the Most High did not lead them by the way of the Philistines. Now, when you're looking at the map there on the right-hand side, it said the way of the Philistines, and it says though that way was near. It says what? That the Most High led them by the wilderness of the Red Sea. So we could begin to see where the children of Israel wandered up, migrating out of the land. So we can gain some understanding of what we're talking about. Next slide. Thank you. Says the way of the Philistines land in Exodus. What you're looking at on the left-hand side, right? It says the Great Sea, Sea of Philistia, the Western Sea, which is also, we're looking at there is the Mediterranean Sea, where it says the way of the land of the Philistines. Goshen being over there on the far left-hand side of that, where the children of Israel went up out of the land of Egypt. Then it said the way of Shur. We're looking at the map on the left-hand side. So it's letting you know the way that the children of Israel went up out of the land of Egypt. Now, let's look at this, brothers and sisters, because there's multiple maps that have been used. But as we stated last time, trying to say that Mount Sinai, even on the right-hand side of the map where it says Mount Sinai has a question mark, because Mount Sinai is not geographically inside of the southern Sinai Peninsula. All right, it says Israelites leaving when they go out. All right. Remember looking at this particular part right here where it says Egyptian domain. This becomes important as we get into the particular portion that we're talking about, where it says Egyptian domain. Because brothers and sisters, when we go, if we will, please, all right, let's go to the book of Ezekiel, if we will, chapter 20, verse 36, so we can gain some understanding of what we're talking about in this particular regard. We are in the book of Ezekiel, chapter 20, verse 36. And in this part, the Most High is recounting the history of the Israelites through the prophet Ezekiel. And this is what he says. All right. So we can gain some understanding of what we're talking about. It says the following. Like I pleaded with your fathers in the wilderness of the land of Egypt, so will I plead with you, saith Yah Elohim, and I will cause you to pass under the rod, and I will bring you into the bond of the covenant, and I will purge out from among you the rebels and them that transgress against me. I will bring them forth out of the land where they sojourn, but they shall not enter the land of Israel, and you shall know that I am Yah. So now, right here in the book of Ezekiel, chapter 20, verse 36, it says, like I pleaded with your forefathers in the wilderness of the land of Egypt. So, what is this wilderness of the land of Egypt that Ezekiel is talking about? This is why it was important to show this kind of map right here, where it says Egyptian domain, all right, on the right hand side there, the wilderness of the Red Sea. So when Israel went out, they didn't go by the way of the Philistines, which we're going to show later on was an easier route, but they went a different route for a particular purpose. Now, let's look at this particular map right here, brothers and sisters, on the right hand side where it says Midian. All right, if you're looking at there on that side, right, it says Mount Sinai in that particular regard. And then over that, it says Arabia. This is where Moses fled from the face of Pharaoh and went to the land of Midian. Now, as we went over in the portion called Shemot, it says in Exodus 3, when the Most High appeared to Moses in the bush, right, the burning bush, he said, you shall bring the people to this mountain. So they already was given a direction on which way they was going to be going when the Most High brought them forth out of the land of Egypt. All right. So this is something we pointed out. And as we also pointed out, that Moses was in the land of Midian. The land of Midian is not in the current day Sinai Peninsula. It's in current land Arabia. All right. So we want this to be pointed out for evidence purposes. Next slide, please. Thank you. Exodus chapter 14, verse 1 through 14. And Yah spoke unto Moses, saying, speak unto the children of Israel, that they turn and encamp before Pi-Hakirot, between Migdol and the sea, and over against Baal Zephon. Before it you shall encamp by the sea. For Pharaoh will say of the children of Israel, they are entangled in the land, the wilderness have shut them in. And I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and he shall follow after them. And I will be honored upon Pharaoh and upon his hosts. And the Egyptians may know, that I am Yah, and they did so. And it was told the king of Egypt that the people fled, and the heart of Pharaoh and his servants was turned against the people. And they said, why have we done this, that we have let Israel go from serving us? And he made ready his chariot and took his people with him. The scriptures is showing different national aspects. His people, not everybody is the same under one umbrella. And he made ready his chariot and took his people with him. And he took 600 chosen chariots of all the chariots of Egypt and captains over every one of them. And Yah hardened the heart of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and he pursued after the children of Israel. And the children of Israel went up with a high hand, but Yad Ramah with a high hand. But the Egyptians pursued after them, and the horses and chariots of Pharaoh, all the horses of chariots of Pharaoh and his horsemen and his army, and overtook them, encamping by the sea, beside Pi-Hakirot before Baal Zephon. And when Pharaoh drew nigh, the children of Israel lifted up their eyes, and behold, the Egyptians marched after them, and they were so afraid, and the children of Israel cried out unto Yah, and they said unto Moshe, because there were no graves in Egypt, hast thou taken us away to die in the wilderness? Wherefore hast thou dealt thus with us to carry us forth out of Egypt? Now, when you look at here in verse 11, when it says there's no graves in Egypt, brothers and sisters, one of the things to point out is the pyramids were used in ancient Egypt as a form of today's terminology, a graveyard, a gravesite, a burial place. It wasn't really until Dynasty 18 of Egypt that the pharaohs were removed to a great extent, and the royalty was removed to a great extent out of those particular pyramids of the old kingdom, and Thutmose the first built what they had, the Valley of the Kings, where they wound up putting the pharaohs and so forth at. All right, due to tomb raiding and so forth inside of Egyptian history. But one of the things to point out is that the ancient Egyptians used the pyramids for the burial of their royalty. The average person, the average common folk among the Egyptians did not have a burial place. You just died, you just lay there. And this is why they're able to find certain things and bones just scattered around like there was no quote unquote proper burial. No. And this goes to show you the scriptures is the accurate in that regard, because it says there were no graves in Egypt. That shows you what the people already knew about the Egyptian society and culture. All right. Then it goes on to say, is not this the word that we did tell thee in Egypt, saying, let us alone that we may serve the Egyptians? For it had been better for us to serve the Egyptians than we should die in the wilderness. And Moshe said unto the people, fear ye not, stand still, and see the salvation of Yah, which he will show you today. For the Egyptians whom you have seen today, you shall see them again no more. The Most High will fight for you, and ye shall hold your peace. So the prophet Moshe in this particular regard is becoming very confident in the situation that we're dealing with once it comes down to that, because the people were getting uncomfortable. Why are you sending me out here? It's better to serve the Egyptians. What do we call that? A slave mentality. Some people may call it post-traumatic slave syndrome. It's better to go back where it was, safer. There's a thing called, pardon me if I misquote the movie, called Goodbye Uncle Tom, in which they had the black man and woman going back and forth as if it was a doll kind of thing. And well, as a slave, I don't have to pay taxes. As a slave, I don't have to sit there and worry about if I get sick, because they're going to sit there and take care of me, because if they kill all of us, they have no slaves. See, that's the mentality of our people in slavery in the South. And that was the mentality of the Israelites that was enslaved in Northeast Egypt. All right. So this is something we want to point out for edification purposes. So when we keep on saying the Deuteronomy 28:68, Egypt by ships, we're not just saying it just to say it. And not to get sidetracked from this portion, because sometimes Jewish so-called scholars try to go against who they call the Black Hebrew Israelites, as pointed out last time in a video I did on this channel. Subscribe to the channel, please. Called Munter, the Roman historian and the Black Israelite claim. That's a video on this particular channel. One of the things I've noticed is the Jewish quote-unquote scholars who try to come against us, the quote-unquote Black, truly the Hebrew Israelites, the house of Yisrael, when we say that Deuteronomy 28:68 is talking about us in the Atlantic slave trade, you notice they never go, it seems, correct me if I'm wrong, into Ezekiel 35, which talks about Esau, Ezekiel 36, which talks about Esau, Ezekiel 37, which talks about the children of Israel being brought up out of the graves, which is the lands of their captivity, and that they will become an exceeding great army. They certainly don't talk about Ezekiel 38 and 39, about the Most High defeating the army of Magog, chief prince of Meshech and Tubal. They don't talk about that. Who are the residue of the nations that Ezekiel chapter 35 and 36 talks about, when then he said that they take the land of Israel in the lips of talkers? Who are those talkers? Because it certainly ain't the black man. We sitting up there trying to make sure we don't get evicted out of an apartment in America. So we certainly ain't having the aspect of the land of the East in our conversation about what we're going to divvy up. You understand? So this is something we want to point out, brothers and sisters, for edification purposes. All right. So let's go on, if we will, brothers and sisters, to the next slide. Thank you. Exodus chapter 14, verse 15 and 26. And Yah said unto Moshe, wherefore criest thou unto me? Speak unto the children of Israel that they go forward. Now let's go back, brothers and sisters. It says what? And Moshe said unto the people, fear ye not, stand still and see the salvation of Yah, which he shall do for you today. Now let's go back. And Yah said unto Moshe, wherefore criest thou unto me? Speak unto the children of Israel that they go forward. So essentially the Most High was telling Moses, you already know what it is. Because remember, Exodus chapter 3 already says that you shall lead the people to this mountain and I will give them my laws. So you already knew what the plan was already. So there's no reason to sit there and say, we're going to do this or no, we're going to do that and so forth and so on. Like you already know what the blueprint is in this particular regard. But lift thou up thy rod and stretch out thy hand over the sea and divide it. And the children of Israel shall go on dry ground through the midst of the sea. And behold, I will harden the hearts of the Egyptians, and they shall follow them. And I will get me honor upon Pharaoh and upon all his hosts, upon his chariots and upon his horsemen. And the Egyptians shall know that I am Yah, when I have gotten me honor upon Pharaoh, upon his chariots and upon his horsemen. Remember, the Most High said that he's going to take vengeance in judgment, should I say, all right? He's going to do as he said, said, Shoftim Bakol Elohim Mitzrayim. And against all the gods of Egypt will I take judgment, says the Most High. So when you're looking at the Pharaoh, he was the incarnate in the Egyptian culture of Heru. That was one of their gods. Okay, then you have the aspect of the horses. That was part of their pantheon of gods because they had the aspect where who they called in Greek Isis, an ancient Egyptian called Orset. They said that if any animal gets sick, this is the goddess that will sit there and help this particular aspect. So when it says that the Most High will get honor upon Orset, this is what we're talking about. When we're talking about the Most High getting honor upon Heru, this is what we're talking about. When we're talking about the Most High getting honor upon Aten, this is what we're talking about. All right, so let's go on, brothers and sisters. And it says this in verse 18. And the Egyptians shall know that I am Yah, when I have gotten me honor upon Pharaoh, upon his chariots and upon his horsemen. And the angel of Elohim doesn't give a name. Let's not try to insert name, brothers and sisters. It says in verse 19, and the angel of Elohim, that's all we need to know, which went before the camp of Israel, removed and went behind them. And a pillar of cloud went from before their face and stood behind them. And it came to pass, and it came between the camp of the Egyptians and the camp of Israel. Now, why do I want to point something out in verse 20? Because it distinctly says in there, the camp of the Egyptians and the camp of Israel. So when they're trying to sit there and say, I don't read nothing about no camps in the scriptures, it's right here in the book of Exodus. All right, then it says this. Because that was an argument, it's not about camps. I go to a Knesset. Well, when it says that they encamped at a certain place, encamped in root is the word camp. There's nothing wrong with the camp. It just depends on whether you got the Daqwa, righteousness, or Resha, wickedness. That's where it boils down to at. All right, so let's go, brothers and sisters, in this particular regard. It's like saying the school is bad. No, it's the people in the school that's either good or bad. It's not the school, it's a building. All right, so this is what we want to point out in that regard. And it was a cloud of and darkness to them, but it gave light by night to these, so that one could not near the other all the night, so that one came not near the other all the night. And Moshe stretched out his hand over the sea, and Yah caused the sea to go back by a strong east wind all that day, and made the sea dry land, and the waters were divided. And the children of Israel went into the midst of the sea upon dry ground, and the waters were a wall unto them on the right hand and on their left. And the Egyptians pursued and went in after them into the midst of the sea, even all Pharaoh's horses, his chariots, and his horsemen. And it came to pass in the morning watch, meaning that there was an order to things. And it came to pass that in the morning watch, that Yah looked upon unto the host of the Egyptians through the pillar of fire and of the cloud, and troubled the host of the Egyptians, and took off their chariot wheels, that they drove them heavily, so that the Egyptians said, let us flee from the face of Israel, for Yah fighteth for them against the Egyptians. And Yah said unto Moshe, stretch out thy hand over the sea, that the waters may come again upon the Egyptians, upon their chariots and upon their horsemen. This is what we was pointing out before when it says that the Most High, brothers and sisters, is not a turn the cheek God. All right, Exodus chapter 14, verse 26 to verse 31. And Moshe stretched forth his hand over the sea, and the sea returned to its strength. When the morning appeared, and the Egyptians fled against it, and Yah overthrew the Egyptians in the midst of the sea. So Yisrael went through the sea at nighttime. It took that particular time for Yisrael to get completely through. But when the Egyptians came after Yisrael, it was in the morning time. Okay, let's go on. And the waters returned and covered the chariots and the horsemen and all the host of Pharaoh that came into the sea after them. There remained not so much as one of them. But the children of Israel walked upon dry land in the midst of the sea, and the waters were a wall unto them on their right hand and on their left. So let's understand what we're seeing, brothers and sisters. In Exodus chapter 14, verses 26 to verse 29, it says what? And the waters returned and covered the chariots and the horsemen and all the host of Pharaoh that came into the sea after them. There remained not so much as one of them. But the children of Israel walked upon dry land in the midst of the sea, and the waters were a wall unto them on their right hand and on their left. Brothers and sisters, it says this, going back to the other slide, right? Let's go to verse 21. And Exodus 14, verse 21 for a point. And Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and Yah caused the sea to go back by a strong east wind all that day and pardon me. Let me start over. And Moshe stretched out his hand over the sea. My mind went ahead of the reading. I stand corrected. And Yah caused the sea to go back by a strong east wind all that night, and made the sea dry land, and the waters were divided. And the children of Israel went into the midst of the sea upon the dry ground, and the waters were a wall unto them on their right hand and on their left. And the Egyptians pursued and went in after them into the midst of the sea, even all Pharaoh's horsemen, his chariots, and his horsemen. And it came to pass that in the morning watch that Yah looked unto the host of the Egyptians through the pillar of fire and out of the cloud, and troubled the host of the Egyptians, and took off their chariot wheels, that they drove them heavily. What was the point, brothers and sisters and elders included? All right, for me to go back to this slide is because when we go to Exodus chapter 14, verse 28 to verse 30, it just gives you a reiteration of what is spoke of earlier. Why does that become important? Because Exodus, like Genesis, is giving you the recap of what happened already. Genesis chapter 2 is not a second creation separate from Genesis chapter 1, just as much as it says here, and Moses stretched forth his hand over the sea, and the sea returned to his strength. And it says, when the morning appeared, and the Egyptians fled against it, and Yah overthrew the Egyptians in the midst of the sea. And the waters returned and covered the chariots and the horsemen and all the hosts of Pharaoh that came into the sea after them. There remained not so much as one of them. But the children of Israel walked upon dry land in the midst of the sea. So it's telling you in verse 29 is going back to verse 20, back to verse 21 and back to verse 22, just letting you know what story it is. So that's the same thing Exodus is doing there as Genesis does in Genesis chapter 2 when it reiterates about the creation story. So it's not two different creations, just as much as this here is not two different Exoduses. All right, so this is something we want to point out by the aspect of an author that's going back into the story to let you know this is what really happened and this is the situation with more detail. The Israel went through, the Egyptians followed them, the Egyptians drowned, but Israel went through on dry ground. When it says Israel went through a second time, it's mentioning it is not a second Exodus. So when you go back, brothers and sisters, in the book of Genesis, chapter 2, and it says about man being formed from the dust of the ground, and the Most High blew into him the breath of life, that's not saying that there was creation after day 7 in the book of Genesis. This is why in all you're getting, get understanding. So this is something we want to point out for edification purposes. All right. And it says this. Thus Yah saved Yisrael that day out of the hand of the Egyptians. And Yisrael saw the Egyptians dead upon the seashore. Then it says, and Yisrael saw that great work which Yah did upon the Egyptians. And the people feared Yah, meaning respected Yah, and believed Yah and his servant Moshe. So in order for the Most High to gain, brothers and sisters, the trust of the people, he did this great work that we're reading of in this particular regard. Now, let's go into the source over here on the right-hand side. According to Werner Keller in his book, The Bible as History, he stated that evidence of what was chariot wheels have been found on the floor or the bed of the Sea of Reeds. Because when we see, brothers and sisters, the Red Sea is really more so called the Reed Sea. Now, you can look that book up online if you want. As we expressed before, many state the exodus of the Israelites from Egypt predated the aspect of the Hyksos. The question then arose, if the Hyksos were they who brought the chariots to Egypt, like many say, then there must have been the Amu or Asiatics in Egypt prior to the timing of Salatus in Dynasty 15. So this is what we want to point out. Brothers and sisters, before you begin to look at the pictures of Dynasty 18 with King Tut and everything on a chariot and so forth and so on, the Egyptians prior to the Hyksos going into Egypt after what they call the Middle Kingdom and setting up under the aspect after the second intermediate period, the Egyptians were already familiar with chariots. The way they got them was by previous Asiatics or previous Amu being inside of the land of Egypt before the later Asiatics that was in Egypt got rule under the aspect of who the Greeks referred to in history as Salatis. So this is something we just want to point out for evidence purposes. Exodus chapter 15, verse 1 through 3. And it says this in the Hebrew, left-hand side. Az Yashir Moshe, Ubne Yisrael, et Hashira Hazot, La Yehovah, Wa Yombru Lemor, Ashira La Ya, Ki Ga'ah, Ga'ah, Sus Warok Bo Rama Bayam, Azi Wazimrat Yah, Wahili, Lishua, Ze'eli Wa'an Wehu, Elohe Abi, Wa'arom Menhu, Yehovah Ish Melchama, Yehovah Shemo. Then sang Moses and the children of Israel this song unto Yah, and spoke, saying, I will sing unto Yah, for he is highly exalted. The horse and his rider hath he thrown into the sea. Yah is my strength and song, and he has become my salvation. This is my God, and I will glorify him. My father's God, and I will exalt him. Yah is a man of war. Yah is his name. So we go, brothers and sisters, to Exodus chapter 15, verse 3. The Hebrew says, Yod-Heh-Wah-Heh Ish Melchama. Yod-Heh-Wah-Heh Shemo. The English says, the Lord is a man of war. The Lord is his name. That is not saying, brothers and sisters, that the Most High is a human being. A man of war is called a warrior. So we can accurately then say what? The Most High is a warrior. The Most High is his name. Or Yehovah is a warrior. Yehovah is his name. Ish also means chief. He's the chief of war, not saying that the Most High is a human being when it says man of war. So that's just something we want to point out. All right. Exodus chapter 15, verse 11 through 18. Who is like unto thee, O Yah, among the gods? Who is like unto thee, glorious in holiness, fearful in praises, doing wonders? Thou stretchest out thy right hand, the earth swallowed them. Thou in thy mercy have led forth the people which thou hast redeemed. Thou hast guided them in thy strength unto thy holy habitation. The people shall hear and be afraid. Sorrow shall take hold on the inhabitants of Palestina. Then the dukes of Edom shall be amazed. The mighty men of Moab, trembling shall take hold upon them. All the inhabitants of Canaan shall melt away. Fear and dread shall fall upon them. By the greatness of thine arm, they shall be as still as a stone, till thy people pass over, O Yah, till the people pass over which thou hast purchased. Thou shalt bring them in and plant them in the mountain of thine inheritance, in the place, O Yah, which thou hast made for thee to dwell in the sanctuary, O Yah, which thou hands hast established. Yah shall reign forever and ever. The English we're reading says this. Nakita bakasteka amzu ga'alta. Nehelta ba'azka el nawe quad sheka. Az nebhalu alufe edom. Ele Moab. Yoka zemo ra'ad. Namgu kol yoshbe kenaan. Tifo alehem. Emata. Wapakad. Big Dowood. Zero aha. Yidmu. Kaeben. Ad ya abor am kayode wahe. Ad ya abor amzu kwanita. Yode wahe yimlok le olam wae. Now, when you look at the part there in the Hebrew in the red, it says kwanita. That's part of verse 16. The part of there it says which thou hast purchased. Kwana means to purchase, to acquire, to get, and it also, as pointed out before in the book of Nehemiah, it also means to redeem. So the people whom the Most High has purchased, the people whom the Most High has redeemed. This same word kwana and root that you see there in the red, highlighted there, is the same word that we keep harping on in Deuteronomy 28, verse 68. When it says wa'ain kone, there is no purchaser, there's no redeemer, there's no buyer. So no president can save our people. Only Yah will save the house of Yisrael, because it was Yah who brought this situation on the house of Yisrael. But as we keep on stating, two things. Psalms 50, and it's not that anybody is perfect, but it says, what have the wicked to declare my statutes? That's one thing. Secondly, if you don't serve the Most High, the God that Moshe spoke to the Pharaoh about, but you have another Lord and Savior, how can you possibly be eligible to even talk about the works of the Most High? Because like it says the wicked cannot declare the statutes. Certain things, wickedness will not cause you to see. So if you're okay with wickedness, and it can be anything from a profane, wicked, unclean diet, food, profane, wicked, unclean sexuality, certain things will just be blocked off from your wisdom and vision. So this is what we want to talk about for evidence purposes, brothers and sisters. Next slide. Exodus chapter 15, verse 20 to 21. And Miriam the prophetess, the sister of Aaron, took a tremble in her hand, and all the women went out after her with trembles and with dances. And Miriam answered them, sing ye unto Yah, for ye have triumphed gloriously. The horse and his rider have he thrown into the sea. When you're being delivered from enslavement, you're going to celebrate like that. Now, the other side says this. In Orthodox Judaism, a part in Talmud called Kol Isha, the men are not allowed to hear a woman sing. Of course, this is not the culture of Israel. Brothers and sisters, in Orthodox Judaism, they teach that a man should not hear a woman singing. So as Judaism, which is not of the Torah, began to become modified, well, it means don't hear it through this way, or don't hear it when you're singing the Shema, or don't hear a woman singing when you're saying this. This right here in the scriptures, it says what? And Miriam answered them, sing ye unto Yah. So it wasn't like Moshe and Aharon, Miriam's brothers, and the other men that were around, like, oh, I can't hear a woman singing. Brothers and sisters, Judaism has nothing to do with the laws of the Most High. So this is something we want to point out for edification purposes. Another claim is, well, if she's singing sexually, a man should not sit there and hear that. Or a man, and this is Judaic teachings, mind you, that a man should not hear a woman singing because he can become sexually aroused. Brothers and sisters, and mainly brothers at this point only, if you become sexually aroused by a woman singing to the Most High, you got a problem. Because Yah, not a sex god. At this point, we reading in Exodus, ain't nobody thinking about getting sexually aroused or sexually satisfied. You really off in that regard. So this is something we want to point out for edification purposes. The females in the house of Yisrael saying, we ain't have no tractate teaching the people that a woman can't sing in the presence of a man. It says sing unto Yah. And in the other aspect, when David sang and danced out of his clothes and the woman got jealous, if you will, or actually disrespectful, if you will, I have a solution for you, Mikhail. It's been real. You take care. Do stay right here. Because when I'm praising the Most High, no spouse is supposed to sit there and interfere with that. Your spouse is supposed to support you doing the work and the praise to the Most High. Your spouse is supposed to encourage you to want to continue doing the good things that you're doing in the name of the Most High. They don't try to say, what about me and my time and our time? No, this is the time that we're dedicating to the Most High, because the Most High already gives us our time like the Most High caused us to meet. So therefore, you don't stop doing the work of Yah because you got a spouse. You understand? You continue in that. Torah in Deuteronomy 24 says men are not supposed to charge that newlywed husband and newlywed wife. He's not supposed to be charged with business for a year. But that doesn't mean that he stopped the work he's doing for the Most High. Hopefully that could be understood. Just because you found a mate, brother, don't mean you stop doing the work that you've been doing in the name of Yah because you got your boo. No, because heaven forbid, Yah take her from you. Because Yah said what? He don't give his glory to another, nor his praise to graven images. So if your wife is the reason why you're not doing the work that you was doing before Yah, this is something to think about. Yahu El Kwana, he's a jealous God. So you don't put your spouse in the place of the Most High, husband or wife. You understand? Your husband does not take the place of the Most High in your life, sisters. If anything, on a human level, he kind of takes the place of your father, because the father of the female gives his daughter to the husband. You understand? Like in Numbers chapter 6, it says, if she go aside from her husband, being under her husband, takat isha, under her husband in that particular regard. In other words, he has responsibility, not that I rule, I get the club like the European style back in the day, hit her over the head, drag her into the cave. No, that's not what that's talking about. This is not caveman teaching. All right, so this is something we want to point out for edification purposes, brothers and sisters. All right, so next slide. Thank you. Exodus chapter 15, verse 22 to verse 27. So Moshe brought Israel from the Red Sea, and they went out into the wilderness of Shur, and they went 3 days in the wilderness and found no water. And when they came to Marah, they could not drink of the waters of Marah, for they were bitter. Therefore, the name of it was called Marah. And the people murmured against Moshe, saying, Ma nishte, what shall we drink? And he cried unto Yah, and Yah showed him a tree. When it says, when he had cast into the waters were made sweet. There he made for them a statute and an ordinance, and there he proved them. And he said, if thou wilt diligently hearken to the voice of Yah Eloheka, the Lord thy God, and wilt do that which is right in his sight, and will give ear to his commandments, and keep all his statutes, I will not put none of these diseases upon thee, which I have brought upon the Egyptians, for I am Yah that healeth thee. And they came from Elim, where there were 12 wells of water and 70 palm trees, and they encamped there by the waters. Brothers and sisters, what would the Israelites be talking about here in Exodus 15 when it says about the diseases that was put upon the Egyptians? Brothers and sisters, the middle kingdom of Egypt has a whole aspect dedicated to burying just babies. When they dug up the pharaohs, they were like, this person had this disease, this person suffered from blindness, this person suffered from this kind of aspect, this person suffered from laryngitis, this person suffered from all these different kind of things. That's what the Most High through Moshe was saying. If you keep the laws, he is the God that heals you. He's not going to bring these things upon you. But it says the condition is this: diligently hearken to the voice of the Most High, your God. So the people who are saying perhaps we can't do the laws only in the land of Israel. That's not what that says. Certain holy days you can't do to its totality inside of the land of exile or the lands of your captivity even. But it done went to the point when Israelites were saying, we ain't got to keep Shabbat in the lands of captivity. Not realizing that the Most High, even in this captivity, this exile, all right, this man done made a thing called quote unquote freedom of religion. So you can simply get a letter saying, this is my, you ain't got it. We know it's not religion, but to speak in the ears of those who employ, here. That's called intelligence and wisdom. Like Mordecai told Esther, don't let them people know you Yisrael and from the house of Benjamin. No. A lot of Israelites, especially when they first come and they understand of being Israel, they want to tell the whole world, all the nations and everything else, you the devil and we the nations. And no, that's not the way to go. That's not intelligent Yisrael. A lot of Israelites have that fire when they first come into knowledge of this and want to sit there and denounce every other nation while not realizing you just found out the reason why you're in the state that you're in is because your ancestors immediately and distant broke the laws of the Most High. So it's actually something to sit back and think, whoa, we come from those who turned their back on Yah. That's why we shouldn't look down really upon the other nations, but rather teach our Yeladim sons and daughters to sit there and be better so they can become better than us. So they can be that exceeding great army Ezekiel 37 is talking about. You understand? So let's go on in this regard. And it says here, and they came to Elim, where there were 12 wells of water and 70 palm trees. Now, of course, in many cases in Israel, the 70 palm trees is meaning 70 palm trees representing 70 nations. That is one of the teachings that you have Shem having 26, Ham having 30, and Japheth having 14, making 70. All right. Then the Hebrew says on the right hand side, Wayabo'u Mara'at. Marata, Salakli. Wayabo'u Marata. Wallo, Yaklu, Lish Tot, Mayim, Mimara, Ki Marim Hem. Alken Kwara Shama, Mara. What's being stated right there is this. What I just read in the Hebrew is verse 23. Why did I emphasize that even in bold type in it? In Exodus chapter 15, verse 23, is because the names of the lands as they traveled through were named by the Israelites that you see in the scriptures. So when they say this is the land of Marah, the Israelites are the ones who named it that. That's important for reason and purposes because these names had meanings. All right, so let's go on to the next slide. Thank you. The Elim and trees and hoarfrost. Now, the manna that the children of Israel was given to eat in the book of Exodus chapter 16, it says it looked like hoarfrost. So I just wanted to show how that picture looked. Then when you look on the other side, when it says the palm trees in the aspect inside of the wilderness, that's what Israel in part would have been looking at. All right, so this is just something we want to go over for edification purposes. Let's go, if you will, brothers and sisters, to Exodus chapter 16 so we can gain an understanding of what we're talking about. It says this, all right? And they took their journey from Elim, and all the congregation of the children of Israel came into the wilderness of Sin, which is between Elim and Sinai, on the 15th day of the second month after their departing out of the land of Egypt. And the whole congregation of the children of Israel murmured against Moshe and against Aharon in the wilderness. And the children of Israel said unto them, would not that we had died by the hand of Yah in the land of Egypt, when we sat by the flesh pots, when we did eat bread to the full. For you have brought us forth into this wilderness to kill this whole assembly with hunger. Sound like who? Yeah, you helped me out, but look at this. I'm free, but no. There's a way to go about things, Israel. Then said Yah unto Moshe, behold, I will cause to rain bread from heaven for you, and the people shall go out and gather a day's portion every day, that I may prove them whether they will walk in my law or not. And it shall come to pass on the 6th day that they shall prepare that which they bring in, and it shall be twice as much as they gather daily. And Moshe and Aharon went unto all the said unto all the children of Israel at even, then ye shall know that Yah had brought you out of the land of Mizraim. And in the morning, then ye shall see the glory of Yah, for that he have heard your murmurings against Yah. And what are we that ye murmur against us? And Moshe said, this shall be when Yah shall give you in the even flesh to eat, and in the morning bread to the full. For that Yah heareth your murmurings, which ye murmur against him. And what are we? Your murmurings are not against us, but against Yah. And Moshe said unto Aharon, say unto the congregation of the children of Israel, come near before Yah, for he hath heard your murmurings. And it came to pass, as Aharon spoke unto the whole congregation of the children of Israel, that they looked toward the wilderness, and behold, the glory of Yah appeared in the cloud. And Yah spoke unto Moshe, saying, I have heard the murmurings of the children of Israel. Speak unto them, saying, at dusk you shall eat flesh, and in the morning you shall be filled with bread, and you shall know that I am Yah Elohecha, the Lord thy God. And it came to pass at even that the quails came up and covered the camp. And in the morning there was a layer of dew round about the camp. And when the layer of dew was going up, behold, the face of the wilderness, a fine scale-like thing, fine as hoarfrost on the ground. And when the children of Israel saw it, they said one to another, Man, who? What is it? For they knew not what it was. And Moshe said unto them, this is the bread which Yah hath given you to eat. This is the thing which Yah hath commanded. Gather ye of it every man according to his eating, and omer a head, according to the number of your persons, meaning the people in your family, shall ye take it, every man for them that is in his tent. And the children of Israel did so, and gathered some more, some less. And when they did meet it with an omer, he that gathered much had nothing over, and he that gathered little had no lack. They gathered every man according to his eating, meaning according to the amount that you eat, not according to what you want to eat. When it says according to your eating, is not what you choose to eat. It's talking about the amount that you're able to eat. And Moshe said unto them, let no man leave it unto the morning. Notwithstanding, they hearkened not unto Moshe, but some of them left of it unto the morning, and it bred worms and rotted. And Moshe was wroth with them. And they gathered it morning by morning, every man according to his eating. And as the sun waxed hot, it melted. And it came to pass that on the 6th day, they gathered twice as much bread, 2 omers for each one. And all the rulers of the congregation came and told Moshe. And he said unto them, this is the thing which Yah hath spoken. Tomorrow is a solemn rest, Shabbaton, a holy Sabbath unto Yahweh. Bake that which you will bake, and seethe that which you shall seethe. And all that remaineth overlay up for you to be kept until the morning. And they laid it up to unto the morning, as Moshe bade, and it did not rot, neither was there any worm therein. This tells us about the importance of the Shabbat even in those days and times. And Moshe said, eat that today, for tomorrow is a Sabbath unto Yah. Today you shall not find it in the field. 6 days you shall gather it, but on the seventh day is a Sabbath. In it there shall be none. And it came to pass on the seventh day that there went out some of the people to gather, and they found none. And Yah said unto Moshe, how long will you refuse? Pardon me. How long refuse ye to keep my commandments and my laws? See that Yah have given you the Shabbat. Therefore he giveth you on the 6th day the bread of 2 days. Abide ye every man in his place. Let no man go out of his place on the 7th day, because they were not supposed to go out there looking for manna. So this is something we want to point out for edification purposes, brothers and sisters. The Shabbat is a sign between Yah and the house of Israel. And it says this. So the people rested on the 7th day. And the house of Israel called the name thereof manna. And it was like coriander seed, white. And the taste of it was like wafers made with honey. And Moshe said, this is the thing which Yah have commanded. Let an omer full of it be kept throughout your generations, that they may see the bread which I fed you in the wilderness, when I brought you forth from the land of Egypt. And Moshe said unto Aharon, take a jar and put an omer full of manna therein, and lay it up before Yah, to be kept throughout your generations, because they kept it on the altar that they wound up building by what they call the table of showbread. All right, and then it goes on to say this. And Yah commanded Moshe, as Yah commanded Moshe, so Aharon laid it up before the testimony to be kept. And the children of Israel did eat the manna 40 years, until they came to a land inhabited, that they did eat the manna until they came unto the borders of the land of Canaan. Now an omer is a 10th part of an ephah. So this is something we just want to point out for edification purposes. All right. It says that the manna was like coriander seed, white. All right. This is something we want to talk about and show in this particular aspect. All right. So let's go on to the next slide. Omer is a 10th of an ephah. In modern times, an omer is equivalent to 6 pints or 12 cups. And the children of Israel did eat manna 40 years until they came to a land inhabited. They did eat manna until they came unto the borders of the land of Canaan. Now an omer is the 10th part of an ephah. So this is just something we want to go over for edification purposes. All right, now what you're looking at on the right-hand side is a map of the journeys of Abraham. Brothers and sisters, the Israelites, and even before the Israelites, the Canaanites, and even in addition to the Canaanites, but not necessarily before them, the Egyptians went back and forth too, between the land of Canaan and the land of Egypt. All right, but we already read and explained last week as to why Israel was led the way in which they were. So they already talking about in Exodus, oh, it's better we serve the Egyptians than to die here. So the Most High, knowing the heart of his people, if they would have saw war, they would have turned right back. Like, I know it's better to serve than this is all I know. All I know is Massa. That kind of mentality. Post-traumatic slave syndrome. That's what the Israelites was going through in the book of Exodus. All right, so let's go on, brothers and sisters, in this particular regard. Exodus chapter 17, verse 1 through 7. And Exodus chapter 17, verse 8 through 16. And all the congregation of the children of Israel journeyed from the wilderness of Sin after their journeys, according to the commandment of Yah, and pitched in Rephidim, and there was no water for the people to drink. Now, what we're reading here, right here, brothers and sisters, it says this, that the prophet Moshe was supposed to smite the rock, and that water will come from it. All right. Now let's go down to verse 7. And he called the name of the place Massa and Meribah because of the children, because of the chiding of the children of Israel, and because they tempted Yah, saying, "Is not Yah among us?" So when you have the doubt in your heart, I don't know if the Most High is with this, that kind of thing, brothers and sisters, goes to let it be known and shown that is not respected, brothers and sisters, by the Most High. All right. So we can gain some understanding of what we're talking about for edification purposes. Okay. Let's go on to Exodus chapter 17, verse 8. And it says this. All right. So we can gain some understanding of what we're talking about. Then came Amalek and fought with Israel in Rephidim. And Moshe said unto Joshua, choose us out men and go out. Fight with Amalek. Tomorrow I will stand on the top of the hill with the rod of Elohim in my hand. So Joshua did as Moshe had said unto him and fought with Amalek. And Moshe, Aaron, and Hur went up to the top of the hill. And it came to pass when Moshe held up his hand that Israel prevailed. And when he let down his hand, Amalek prevailed. But Moshe's hands were heavy. And they took a stone and put it under him. And he sat thereon. And Aaron and Hur stayed up his hands, the one on the one side and the other on the other side. And his hands were steady until the going down of the sun. Brothers and sisters, this is just something we want to talk about for edification purposes. All right? Came, and it says, and Joshua discomfited Amalek and his people with the edge of the sword. And Yah said unto Moshe, write this for a memorial in a book and rehearse it in the ears of Joshua, for I will utterly put out the remembrance of Amalek from under heaven. And Moshe built an altar and called the name of it Yehovah Nisi. The Most High is my miracle. The Most High is my banner. For he said, because Yah has sworn that Yah will have war with Amalek, Medor Lador, from generation to generation. Brothers and sisters, that concludes the particular teaching on this portion, Beshalach. Wasn't as long and extensive as the other ones, but they will be put inside of the description. Giving thanks and glory to Yah, creator and maker of heaven and earth. Shalom. Good night.